Good evening. I'd like to call the January 24th, 2022 Rutherford County School Board work session to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Holden. Thank you, Mr. Holden. I'd like to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence this evening. I would ask that you'd remember Mr. Groom's family and Mr. Parker's family this evening. Thank you. Okay. Any questions on the agenda, the approval for the agenda by any board members?
I got one on the consent agenda.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda.
Yeah. On the volunteer coaches, we don't normally add anybody after the season starts unless there's extenuating circumstances. I talked to Mr. Harris on Siegel High's boys basketball, and he is going to let us know Thursday if that works out okay.
For an additional? Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns on the consent agenda? All right, spotlight on education.
It'd be Thursday night.
Thursday night. Number 8.
All right, number 8, rezoning proposal for information only.
Go ahead.
So the last time that I met with you, we had talked about combining 2 different plans, which we had done, and we eliminated at least 2, if not 3, of the previous plans that we had. John, can you scroll down some? Or all the way up, please? So the newest version of what we have been working on basically takes all the areas that we have looked at, all 15 of the areas. We've only eliminated 2. Those are the ones that exist between or have existed between Blackman and Siegel High School around the Florence Road area between Old Nashville Highway and I-24. Both of those have been removed, and you've been given numbers for all the other areas that are left. And there is a spreadsheet that is at the bottom. You've been given this spreadsheet before, and actually it was at the bottom of your packet, yep, with 15 different areas. It's also on that very large map that you were given this evening.
Thank you so much for the large map.
Yes, ma'am.
It really is a great help.
Is this reference this option 2I, the one that merged?
Yes, sir.
So this would bring Blackman would be at,
They would sit right at around 2086 for opening of next year.
and Rockville would actually increase.
Yes, they would increase slightly, but they won't increase the 220 or so that we're expecting to be there. Again, this is nothing but a freshman plan. There are no other grades that are expected to move. Anybody would be moving because they either wanted to or needed to whatever zone school.
In making this clear, are we moving any to Siegel? Or any-
In this particular plan, yes, we would. I think it's either 8 or 9 students.
Is it A6, or excuse me, A7 and 8?
Yes, sir. It would be actually 6B, 7.
6B, 7 and 8.
Yes, there are, as I explained previously, there's one student that lives in that Section 8 area, and it is a junior this year, or going to be a junior, I'm sorry.
With the understanding, those that are grandfathered, if we grandfather the rising sophomores to rising seniors, they would have to provide their own transportation.
That is correct, sir. And I apologize, that number between, in the downtown area is a little bit bigger than what I had just said. There are 11 freshmen in 6B and 15 in 7, so you're looking at 20 students.
And those students currently attend where?
The students in 6B, 11 students, they're at the very tail end of the Rockville zone, and Section 7 is now at Blackman High School.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. As part of this also, one of the other little things we did to look at cleaning up, you'll notice that Section 9 in there repeatedly, but it literally holds no students. It's right on Broad Street, and it's all businesses. I don't think there'll ever be a home there. So there are no students in that area. It's literally just to clean up. 4A would remain at Rockville, just in case there's any misunderstanding with that.
Just moving A6, A7, and A8 to Siegel is going to put a lot of problems in one school. It's the reason we had the downtown separated the way it was. Then we have them divided up between Siegel, Rockville, Riverdale, and Blackman at one time.
How many total kids are there down there?
In those two areas that have children, we're looking at 36, 58, so 98 or 90.
And that's including
94
9
altogether.
through 12?
Yes,
rather
sir.
than
If you were to take both those areas, put them together, and build it out 4 years, we're talking about almost 100.
On your projection here on Siegel, you've got a projected of about 60 kids there. Is that just ninth grade?
That would also include their growth, their whatever growth they have coming to them.
So you're really not projecting all these kids over to Siegel, is that correct? Or
No, all the kids that live in those two zones under this particular proposal, yes, would go. But that also, the difference in those two numbers between 1814 and 1874 include those numbers, plus any incoming students that they have coming through just, normal 8th to 9th grade enrollment.
Gotcha.
And I asked you this afternoon, but we're putting in about 5% growth, is that right? Figuring 5% growth? You're
No,
grinning.
I don't.
I know it's not 3, because it was 3 when I was here, so what is our growth that
It's
we're?
about 3.
Is it 3?
Yeah. We had the large increase this year because of the
COVID.
kindergarten.
As a district, yes, it was around 3%. As I was explaining, just so you all know, as I was explaining to Ms. Branton today, the difference in that is, on an average, the district may be one thing, but when you break it down by area of the county or by school zone, you're going to get some areas just grow faster than others. Blackman is definitely growing at a much faster rate than Oakland right now, for example.
1% at Blackman would be 4 or 5% at Siegel.
Right.
There's one student in 8.
Yes, ma'am. Rising junior.
Okay. So I'm sure there's a reason, help me understand maybe. Moving these students, I share Mr. Estes' concern and comments after looking at this further. Could we not leave 9, which is industrious, 8 and 7 at Blackman?
Yes, you would have to leave 9, like you just said, because you have to have some way to get
Sure,
from
makes it
one side to
contiguous.
the other.
Yeah.
And 8 and 7 definitely could be, I mean, we're at a point where we can pretty much do what
Whatever.
you need to do to fulfill your goals.
I could see us leaving those at Blackman. One of the things as we look at our building program is Siegel is not anywhere near capacity. So you're going to have to make some decisions down the road of where you're going to move kids into Siegel. Now, obviously, these areas here are not going to give you what exactly what they need, but that's something down the road you're going to have to look at.
Absolutely. And Siegel's a hard one to pull kids
Yeah, it
into.
is. Well, you got Walter Hill, Las Casas, I mean, it's pretty simple, you know. I don't think you could go much down. I don't know, Mr. Creasy, where does your zone go down Old Nashville Highway, or does it? I mean, not Old Nashville Highway, excuse me. Jefferson Pike. Does it go over the bridge? It stops at the bridge?
Yeah, literally, the river is the entire west side of his zone.
Gotcha.
And 231 is the east,
Okay.
until you, of course, get to the downtown area.
Yeah.
So the Walter Hill zone is not his? Children who
What do you-
go to
do you
Walter
mean
Hill?
Walter Hill Elementary School?
Uh-huh.
It's divided by Highway 231.
Okay.
That'd be Oakland and Siegel. So what's Oakland's population? I mean, I know they're not part of this, but are they at near capacity as well?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, so they both have
1900
some room.
something, 1970 maybe?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
The day I pulled this profile, they were at 2,000.
Thank you.
Are all the children at Walter Hill divided also into middle schools?
Yes, ma'am, because
Some of them go
231,
to Siegel and some of them go
230, 231 is also the divider between
Got you.
those two schools as well.
to... It didn't used to be, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Young?
It's something I'd like for the board to consider at downtown area. I know there was a comment made in the last meeting that those kids are having to drive past high school just to get out to Rock Vale. They're considering Rock Vale as a country school. I'd like for us to look at putting some of those kids in Holloway. We got Holloway sitting over with a lot of capacity.
I already said that.
That's not what Holloway is supposed to be. I mean, that's not what Holloway does.
I know, but there's room there.
They're not at capacity.
And I think
Yes,
we
but
need to look,
isn't it a choice school?
It is.
Thank you.
but don't we want
Isn't
all
it a
our-
choice school for a specific reason?
It is.
Okay.
do we not want all of our schools to be choice schools?
Pardon me?
Do we not want all of our schools to be choice schools? I mean, it seems like that's what the public is yelling out here, that they like for their kids to go whatever school they want to go to.
I I think we've got to be very conscientious of our demographics as we rezone. That's the purpose of this thing on the back there. You do have it broken down by demographics.
Yes, sir. Not in the information I've
You
provided,
don't, but you have had.
but I do have it, yes, sir.
Okay.
How many students do we have at Holloway now, Mr. Spurlock?
Not enough, about 104.
Yeah, Holloway, I don't believe truly we've promoted it enough. A lot of people don't even know Holloway exists. And
It needs a
I think we do
CTE
need to do a
program.
better job because it would be the right fit for a lot of kids. If you don't really care about sports and you want small classes, it's got a lot of the things that a lot of people go to Eagleville for. And I really feel like we need to really promote it more.
It's helped a lot of kids get their diploma when they needed smaller classrooms and more attention and flexible kinds of scheduling. It's certainly served its purpose.
So currently, I'm sorry.
I don't disagree with that at all, and I promote what we're doing at Holloway. I just think there could be some opportunities right there in that downtown area for some of those kids to take advantage of that too, if we would encourage them. I think some of those kids probably need smaller classrooms. I think we might see their grades improve if we put them in the right environment. And I just think there's some opportunities right there that we could really focus in on, and we could improve our whole school district here. Putting kids in the right, plugging them in the right holes.
I was just going to say, currently Holloway's doesn't have a zone, it's just a school.
Choice.
It's a choice school, yeah.
Right.
I
I think-
didn't see it, so
But it is in the
I kind of
downtown
want to make
area.
sure. So.
I think to Ms. Maxwell's point, I think we could do a better job, not to be critical, but I don't think many people know about Holloway and the advantages. So, I mean, we can certainly be advocating for that, but it is a choice school. So I do have reservations about rezoning any student to the school. I mean, it kind of falls in the face of what we already do with choice.
Can't force anybody to.
Yeah.
Saying let's open it up, let kids that want to go there, go there.
I don't think that the distance is an issue because my next door neighbor, I'm right at the Rutherford-Davidson County line, attends Holloway.
And they don't offer transportation.
No, they don't.
No, but she drives herself.
It's a great point. There's currently 99 enrolled per these numbers. They have 300 and some
Yeah.
spaces, so
They
they
could
do
double.
have some room, yeah. Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Could we look at putting a CTE program that might draw some more students there? Because currently, I don't think they have one.
Do they not have any
You
CTE?
can't put the cart before the horse. You got to have the kids there before you can justify a position.
But to her point, if you don't say, we're going to offer this, the kids aren't going to come. We have to give them.
We've
I
had,
think that's one of the reasons the numbers are down. There's no,
okay,
there's
guys,
nothing
let me
there for the
let me
guys.
finish, okay? We've had a program over there, MEP program over there just here recently, and we could not fund it, or we could not have enough in there to justify having the program. Now, it could be transportation, it could be, a variety of different things.
I know they had auto mechanics at one point, and then the teacher quit. And I know that was very appealing to the young men. Have we thought about putting auto mechanics back?
We usually have those conversations with the principal to kind of look and see what they feel like that they can, and then the auto mechanics even dwindled down. The issue is the number of kids in the building. I think it goes back to Mr. Young's point, but it is a choice school, but I think we would have to, if we kept it as a choice school, I mean, we would have to somehow determine how, or if we zone some kid over there, we'd have to run some transportation there.
Well, we've got to give them a choice, and I've spoken with several of the teachers and some students that were at Holloway at their last open house, and they want a CTE program, whether it's mechanics, whether it's something to do with trades, something to do with your hands. It goes back to that thing, if we build it, they'll come. I mean, you have to have something there for them to go to.
You have, these programs are very expensive. You have to have an enrollment in order to justify the cost. I mean, and we've had those programs over. We've had the auto mechanics. It went away because of declining enrollment. I think we would first have to get the enrollment there with the understanding that we would be bringing programs of interest as long as we had the ability to fill the classrooms.
Well, if we actually feel like it meets some students' needs, or do they know about this school? I mean, is it promoted? Is it?
It is. There's probably some guidelines as far as acceptance that we could tweak that could create a more robust enrollment. I think that's our biggest issue. Would you not concur with that, Dr. Sullivan?
Yes, sir. I'm looking at their enrollment right now, and it looks like in Skyward we have one ninth grader. And I know that we have teachers that are teaching courses that could have one student in that course. And so definitely tweaking some of the enrollment applications would help in that process.
But I do still think it would go back to transportation, especially for freshmen.
There's one ninth grader at that school? Okay.
I just think we're really missing the boat here if we don't, you got kids that could actually walk to that school.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The population that would be
I mean, those,
known for would be the ones that could walk.
Well,
Thought about adding a middle school to it, and an opportunity to stay as a 7th and 8th grader. And then just stay there through high school, kind of like Central Magnet is. And just that's an option. I'd hate to lose it.
Mr. Sullivan, did you?
Yeah, I misread that. So we already have one ninth grade registered for next year. We have 28 ninth graders right now.
Oh,
So that's my mistake. So I feel much better after looking at that. I looked at 2023, not 2022. Sorry.
that sounds a little better.
It does sound
I had
better.
a lot of questions. I don't think that that's a terrible idea. I think that obviously as a choice school, we need to be doing everything we can to promote all of our schools that meet the needs of our students. But for our purposes, I think that a choice is a choice. And I think Mr. Spurlock is right. Once we start adding students there or requiring them, which obviously I understand, Mr. Young, you're not asking that, but you get into transportation, and if numbers and enrollment is an issue, then let's do a better job as a board to promote the school, attract the attention. And then, Mr. Spurlock, how long does it take to get a CTE program established?
It wouldn't take that long. You start off with your freshman year. That's the big thing. You want to start off either your freshman or sophomore year. One of the things I think this is an internal thing that we can work on to get the enrollment up. I think the school has been, obviously I think it's been a school where students have excelled in that school because of the small enrollment, and left other large comprehensive high schools because they were struggling. But I think if we would work, I think we could get, starting next year, work on the guidelines that would allow students to apply to go to the school. Right now, it's a process where they apply to the principal. The principal looks at the recommendation and they make the decision there, right there. But we can give some type of a quota in which how many we would look to get in there in order to build it up where we would have the ability to offer special classes and like CTE.
Would be good.
Okay.
Get all the mechanics.
I mean, essentially, they can walk to school, they could do that now on their own. There's nothing keeping them from going there, correct?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Except they're zoned for Rockville.
But they could go home.
It's a choice school.
That's what, yeah, I'd like for them to go there.
But they could choose to go.
I guess my question is, do they know they can go there? Are they, in their mindset, they think they gotta go to Rockville? versus going to Holloway.
You know, I think it's a branding thing more than anything else with Holloway. You know, you have to brand it differently. I think it's primarily it's been when, you know, you can't make it in another school, you went to Holloway. But quite frankly, I've been to many of their graduations, and there's some very bright kids there. So I mean, maybe it's a branding thing.
And phenomenal teachers.
They thought about going to the middle schools, all of the middle schools, and saying, here's our presentation. You may be zoned for this school, but have you thought about Holloway? And then letting the kids know and the parents know that they have another option, because unless they seek it out, they may not know it. They may not pay attention.
It's a very good
I was thinking if we had some kind of fair where they go to the schools and kind of said, hey, these are your options, and promoted it, that might help a lot right there too.
I think most of our middle schools and high schools do that. I mean, from my most recent experience, but I mean,
I don't know that Holloway's gotten in the door.
Sure.
Maybe they need to get in that door too.
I mean, we could certainly look at making those improvements. Okay, other comments, questions, concerns on these maps?
Is there anything you'd like for Mr. Morgan to move, change, or anything prior to your meeting? If you can, I guess they can get in touch with you.
Yes, sir, I have time.
Well, if there is, we can let you know, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just as a point of reminder, just like I did this afternoon, for those of you that are new to the board, whenever I get a request, I make sure to send the data back out to every single one of you once I've been granted permission to do that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I try not to hold anything for one person or another, you know. Make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, it is very helpful because sometimes we don't know what others are asking for. So I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you also for this middle school information. I think it's something that we'll be able to use as we talk about future growth.
Yes, ma'am.
So the only change that I would ask is, or maybe somebody can help me understand if it's even something we want to do, that 9, 7, 8, 9, leaving them at Blackman and just moving the 6B to Siegel. Is there any reason why anybody would pose that requested change?
Absolutely not. I think that makes sense.
16 students, so
there is one thing I would caution you on that.
Okay.
One of the factors behind looking at that area was for there to be a clean break between all three of those zones that sit right there together. That was the logic behind it. It made numerical sense when you added it up. The one thing that I want you to keep in mind, I'm more than happy to give you whatever you need, but one thing to keep in mind is the line that separates Section 7 from Section 6A is a jagged line, and the reason that line is jagged is because in the middle of a subdivision, you don't want to go straight down the middle of a street and have kids from one side or the other. You go behind the property lines on one side of the street or the other. That way, everybody is assured you know exactly what zone you're in if you live in that house.
okay.
So
I
just so
mean,
you...
7 and 6B.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said 6A, and I'm going.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
7 and 6. And
Okay,
6B, yes.
okay, it's jagged because you're going property
Around-
line,
you're following
right?
property
right,
lines, not the street center lines.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, that was definitely a point that was made when we zoned Rockvale to begin with, was why we did it there, and that was exactly why.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
I have one question when we look at this middle school, and Coy may have actually answered it when, because I said something about it earlier. I noticed when you looked at Whitworth Buchanan Middle, and it's really not grown as much as we thought it was going to. The 7th grade and 8th graders are 259, 322, and then it's a dramatic, only 165 6th graders. Is that because I will say I did keep my kids at Black Fox.
They're
Elementary.
staying,
Is that what it
yes,
is?
they're staying at city schools
Okay.
until they have to go.
Gotcha.
A lot of times what you'll see is students that transition from 5th to 6th grade and go ahead and go to the middle school is usually for one reason, because athletics or some kind of extracurricular activity that they want to be involved in, that is offered for them. And I don't know if it's still the case, but those programs were not offered at one time at Murfreesboro City.
Okay.
Mrs. Maxwell, I'll add, they've actually grown 40 kids from 2 years ago. Mrs. Sneed, they were reward school this year, and so in changing that, their 6th grade is increasing enrollment quite a bit.
Okay.
That's one of the things that Mr. Morgan is getting from me, is to look at the number of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in that zone. We think what is occurring is some of them are going to PCA, some of them are going to MTCS. But I will say this, not only was there a reward school, but the principal was the Rutherford County School System Principal of the Year.
I think I remember.
Anyone else have a question to ask Mr. Morgan? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, number 9, Title 1 and 2 contract framework for understanding poverty, found on tab 2. Ruben Perez of AHA Process Inc. will provide workshop for teachers at David Urey Elementary. Teachers who participate in this training will receive the following. They'll be using concrete instructional strategies to help students from poverty. They will understand hidden rules of economic class and effects on behavior and mindset. They will develop stronger relationships with their students to impact behavior. And hopefully this will result in reduced discipline referrals. The topics of this workshop includes the following: mental models, family structure, language patterns, and more. Workshop will give a new and veteran teachers tools to help students from poverty today. Virtual workshop was planned for January the 3rd of 2022, but is being rescheduled to on-site training due to inclement weather closure on that day. The new date for this training will be on May the 3rd of 2022. An addendum to the contract is attached. The contract details are as follows: from the March 3rd of 2022 from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. The total cost is $6,260.32, and it will be paid for with David Urey Title I and Title II funds. In Title I, $3,229.32, and Title II for $3,031.
Do we have any questions or comments?
I'd like to. Thank you for including the Title I, Title II. If we could have more of a breakdown like that when we have positions that we're voting on, if there's any kind of physical note on there, if we could have that on there, I'd love that you show how the breakdown from Title I and Title II funds.
Are you talking about on the cost of these federal funds?
Yes, sir.
Broken down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, number 10, if there's not any questions, number 10, curriculum instruction found on tab 3. 1, thought exchange software. Curriculum instruction is requesting to purchase 30 license for Thought Exchange. Thought Exchange is a discussion platform that utilizes perspectives, ideas, and solutions for multiple strategic planning initiatives. These licenses will be utilized with the public comment required for ESSER funding by our Title I schools for required parental engagement and by schools for input on the state required E-Plan. Curriculum instruction will further use the platform to collaborate with educators on strategic planning initiatives and curriculum resources. The one-year cost for the 30 license, including training and setup, is $72,000. It will be funded out of the general purpose software line item. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Dr. Sullivan?
Yes, several things. One, this will be a way we don't always, especially for our Title I schools, get a whole lot of parental involvement because even though we use Microsoft Forms or SurveyMonkey, there's that still belief that it's not anonymous. This is a platform that any person can use an idea. They submit an idea and then it is live so that anybody that is doing it can rate their idea so that it'll give us a little bit more actionable feedback. We did this with about 500 curriculum leads as a pilot not too long ago, about 3 weeks ago. and really got some actionable things that we're going to bring before with maybe some calendar things later on.
I'd also add that the instruction department did some brainstorming on here. The only thing I said, bring a solution with a problem. And he did.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Will there be a reoccurring software charge for this every year?
Great question. I asked if there'd be a reoccurring software charge. If we choose to continue, that's when we only did one license, but we also have, because we can use federal programs, because that is a required component of parental involvement that we don't always use, and unfortunately that just kind of rolls every single year. So that's part of what we would use it for. So if there is next January, we would look at federal programs for that.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, number 2 is the Charter School Committee is required per policy 1.901 Charter School applications. The board shall name the members of the team. It's a meeting in January of each year. The board shall designate a chair of the review team as the contact person for answering questions about the application process and receiving applications. As you can see, this list here of those that have been chosen to represent this committee. Rutherford County Board of Education Policy 1.901 states that the review team shall be comprised of members of the administrative staff for the district, community members, and member of the board which with relevant educational, organizational, financial, and legal experience.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
I've got a question about Ms. Donna Barrett. You know, those of us on the board had already discussed we didn't really want our races being partisan, but that was something that was kind of taken out of our hands and voted on, you know, without us. I know Ms. Barrett has been a state rep. She was head of the GOP. I'm just very concerned about someone from one party being on this committee.
You're concerned about, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Someone being from one party being on this committee.
Are we aware of what party these other ones are in? We got another community member in there. I don't think we asked that question about what party they belong to.
But she was the head of the GOP, and that's well known.
True, but what I'm saying is I don't know if we don't ask that question, do we?
Who submitted her name as someone to be on the committee?
I think what we were looking for, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sullivan, with a lot of diversity. We got some on there that actually have kids at private school. Is that right?
And she doesn't have any children in the system, and it hasn't had any in the system.
Was this person apply for this? Did we have openings, or was she just chosen?
I think a volunteer, was that correct?
Excuse me?
It is. That's the way it's written in policy, is that you can have anyone volunteers to serve on this at the school board director of the school's decision. I'll pull up the actual policy to show you how it's written, but it's a Model TSBA policy.
Ms. Sharp, would you like to review the policy and circle back, or?
You know, my fellow board members may not see that. I think there's going to be somebody out there that's going to have a problem that we have someone from the former head of the Republican Party. I mean, are we making this very political when it shouldn't be?
I agree with Ms. Sharp. I think we're asking for trouble.
That's what's the board here for. You'll vote on it on Thursday night.
And I will add that the Charter Commission did, one of their comments was that we did not have representation. Without getting political, there's always the assumption of public educators being in one party, and that was part of the assumption that was made during the Charter Commission, that we were not representing one side.
Although I understand the political implications, I certainly understand what you ladies are saying, and I appreciate your comments. I wonder if Ms. Barrett's familiarity with funding, having served on fiscal review and been in the state legislature, if that wouldn't be to the committee's advantage, her knowledge base. So I understand the political part, but then I wonder if that wouldn't be a variable that, and arguably, as Mr. Spurlock said, did anybody else on this list go through the same level of scrutiny to be able to be qualified for this committee? I don't know the answer to that.
And are we allowed, is this the it, or can we add someone?
Yeah, so I'll read the policy too. It says that let me get to it. Necessary, the board shall appoint a review team to assist in reviewing and evaluating charter school applications. The team shall be comprised of members of the administrative staff for the district, community members, and a member of the board with relevant educational, organizational, financial, and legal experience. The board shall name the members of the team at its meeting in January of each year. The board shall designate a chair of the review team as the contact person for answering questions.
Does it say that we can only have one member of the board on the team?
It does not. What I read is exactly what it
Okay.
says. And no, with this process, because we found out TDOE this year is actually doing training for authorizers, which would have been really nice last year, but didn't exist. So they are doing trainings. We've already had 2 with them. And so this can be a standing committee, and based on the number of applications that you actually receive, you can break this group into other committees so that the entire team is not having to review all of that information. And so adding members, whatever we needed to do, we're fine with.
I think it would behoove us if Tammy's willing, Ms. Sharp's willing to serve, to add her to this, because she has done some homework regarding all this, and I think it would help to have more than one.
And that's up to the board. That's you guys' decision.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay,
All right, number 3, this position was already allocated previously as a K-12 school counselor supervisor. We currently have not had any applicants. Is that correct?
We've had some applicants, we've
But
done
not
some
qualified?
interviews, but we still have, that's a large breadth of a standard for somebody to K-12 with all the different responsibilities.
So what we're requesting here is to break this up, this position up from K-12 to K-5 and 6-12. What this would require would be 2 positions. One would be funded partly out of ESSER 3.0, and 1 position would become part of the general purpose budget as previously planned, and the other position would be funded from federal funds. So we would blend that federal money there in order to cover for that second position.
What are the ranges, the pay ranges for those?
You're looking at, when we budget a specialist position or supervisor position, we budget somewhere between 80 and 100 with their benefits. Because it is a certified teacher, they would have to have a master's, and so you're looking at that range. The very minimum they would be able to make, I think, is around $52,000 starting off.
Thank you.
I mean, what's the contract days, 220?
They're 260.
260?
They are 260. Because we want them to lead PD in the summer for our other counselors.
thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I wonder if since the hiring situation of folks, have you got a lot of external or just mostly internal?
It's actually mostly external.
Just has nothing to do with nothing, other than I'm curious.
And that was part of what cued us off that something may be wrong with this posting. When we don't really have any internal candidates applying, that told us that maybe this job was too big for what it truly entailed.
Hope of it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Very smart,
Good question.
divvy it up between, because that's a big difference in being an elementary counselor
Big.
and a high school counselor.
Big difference.
Okay. Any other comments? Next one. Financial matters?
All right, number 11, financial matters, to authorize 2 additional inclement weather days for certain classified staff at Rockville High and middle schools for the school year of 2021-22. All classified hourly employees currently receive 6 inclement weather days for the current school year. As of 1/18/2022, there has been 5 inclement weather days used system-wide, with the exception of Rockville High and Rockville Middle. These 2 schools utilized 2 additional inclement weather days for pay purposes this year due to a gas leak at the high school on September 8th of 2021 and September 9th of 2021, as well as no air conditioning in the building at the middle school on 9/16/2021 and no heat in the same building on November 29th of 2021. The approval of these 2 additional inclement weather days authorizes these employees to be paid for the inclement weather day of 1/18/2022, as well as providing 1 remaining inclement weather day to align with classified employees of these 2 schools with the rest of the district. There will be no additional costs for this unless the school year is extended. Mr. Lee, have we checked in on, especially for those over, not the gas leak, but the ones where the geothermal was compromised, on them reimbursing us for this?
We'll take that out of the liquidated damages clause that's included in our contract.
Good, thank you.
Got a question. We roll our inclement weather days that are left over from the year, we roll them to the next year? No.
No.
So if we have some left over, when we get if we get out of the inclement weather, as far as snow and things like that, could we not use those to give to our teachers as a planning day?
No, your 200-day contract includes 180 days of instruction, and then your vacation and PD days. So we wouldn't need to. That would extend the school year. Are you talking about as we get toward the end of the school year?
Toward the end of the school year. I wouldn't want to give them now, but if we have some excess and we can't roll them, why can we not use that to?
Well, we are actually, in our new proposal for next year, I think that's what we're going to do.
We're going to bring that before the board in February. That was based on the thought exchange that we talked about, that our curriculum leads filled out, is using some of those inclement weather days to build in a day each or before each 9 weeks. For this year, in order to use inclement weather days, it has to require TDOE approval. Some districts have done that in the past, but usually to use those days at the end of the year, they're usually denied. But that's something we've definitely discussed and other districts have tried in the past.
You have to go before, you have to set your calendar ahead of time, and then you send it in to TDOE and they approve it, and you can't wiggle with it very much. They're funny about that.
Just trying to think out of the box.
Oh, I
get some
know.
more.
Many years
Great
ago,
idea.
we remember we had the 13 days, and we kept saying, can't we just take off 13 days earlier? But no, they won't let you do
Yeah,
that.
I wouldn't do that, but, okay, thank you.
But it was a good idea.
All right.
Okay, next item.
All right, next one is request for the Red Hawk Touchdown Club to apply for approval for Tennessee Secretary of State to hold a raffle in the fall of 2022. The Red Hawks Touchdown Club is requesting school board permission to apply for approval from the Tennessee Secretary of State to hold the raffle in the fall of 2022. In order to do this, the club needs to have an annual gaming event application submitted to the Secretary of State by January 31st of 2022 in order to be in compliance with the State of Tennessee charitable gaming law. In compliance with Rutherford County Schools approval, board policy 2.404, the Red Hawks Touchdown Club is requesting the school board approval for this fundraiser prior to the fundraiser being submitted to the Tennessee Secretary of State for approval under the terms of the Tennessee charitable gaming implementation law.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
Do we know what the raffle's going to be?
I'm sorry?
Do we know what are they going to raffle on?
A Z-turn, 42
Z-turn,
inch
42
deck.
inch, yeah. Lawnmower.
Lawnmower.
One more.
$10. I've already sent some down that way.
We all need to
Hurry and approve it.
thank you.
I don't know anybody that wouldn't want one of those.
Next item.
All right, next is resolution for temporary transfer of funds from the general purpose school fund to the federal projects fund for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2022, 2023, and 2024. Doug, you want to explain how that occurred?
As you can see on the resolution, with the additional funding from ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, we get quite a sizable amount of federal grant funding. And how this works is with these federal funds is it's on a reimbursement. Thus, if you remember, back in the spring, we requested an additional $1 million be moved as a transfer from the general purpose school fund to the federal project fund balance. We already had $1 million in there from years gone by for just basically cash flow purposes until that federal money came down to reimburse what was already spent. When we got ESSER 2, we requested that second $1 million, which this board and the county commission approved. Since then, we've been awarded ESSER 3 with substantial more reimbursing, federal funds. Like this issue came up with the bonus that we just did, the half of the bonus that this board approved, and that was over $3.5 million that was drawn. So that was, according to my federal projects account, told me she's been here 26 years in that role. She said that was the largest drawdown that she ever did, one single drawdown of federal funds. So the point being is, what we're requesting here is when we have these large one-time drawdowns, this would be the authority to bring over up to $3 million more of local funds from the fund balance of general purpose school fund to the federal projects fund. But the funds, those additional $3 million or up to $3 million, would only stay there for reimbursement purposes until that large draw came down and we got the reimbursement. Then we would move it back to the fund balance of the general purpose school fund. Once again, just is a cash flow issue with such a large grant money we're doing it.
Yeah, because they may just keep it.
Will the move back, once we do this and vote, will you bring back that item for us to vote back, to move it back?
No, ma'am, this would be it. This is just like with the $2 million. It is saying the board is giving the authority to me, and of course the county commission would approve this as well for the county finance department to say, when you see that need for cash flow on those large drawdowns, which we will have again in May, we'll have that second part of the bonus. Also, Mr. Lee's working on some large capital projects that was approved in ESSER 2. Then the funds would go over, if needed, for the cash flow purposes once the reimbursement takes place, which is typically 7 to 10 days, from our request to the State Department of Ed for the reimbursement. Then that money, once the receipt of those federal funds came down, we would move that back.
Okay, and that wouldn't take...
It would be no action of this board. It would be, what you're giving now is for the next 3 fiscal years when that was needed.
Okay.
And it would come back.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So the board won't be notified when there's a drawdown, or they will? The board won't be notified when there's a drawdown, or we will?
I give you on the monthly financials, it would show that transfer and transfer back. You'll see that in your monthly financials, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next item.
All right, next item is the discussion of the Rutherford County debt service funds. Got it up there. Go ahead.
I handed out to you a copy of what was emailed to you earlier, and as requested by this board, you wanted to look at debt capacity of the county for potential education funding, as well as just basically the capacity and, of course, where that debt service fund stood at the moment. What you have in front of you, as requested by the board, is a 5-year history of revenues and ending fund balances of the county debt service fund. And just a little bit about that, if you turn the page on this spreadsheet, on the second page, you'll actually see an audited copy, and this is from June 30th, 2017 fiscal year. I have the everything that's on this summary page on your first page, the backup for all the numbers are behind that. I just wanted you to see on that second page, it shows the county debt service fund financial operations for the fiscal year according to the audited financial statements, which of course these numbers are audited annually by the state comptroller's office. A little on the debt service fund before we get into the actual trends. The county debt service fund, it is where the vast majority of the debt that's issued by the county commission, including the majority of it is education debt service. That's where the debt payments are actually serviced. So all the principal and interest payments for all the bonds and the loans and income capital leases that's been approved by the school board and county commission are serviced out of this fund. As you can see, it has revenues and it has the expenditures, the debt payments, which of course a lot of the expenditures in this fund are based on the bond agreements with, just like a mortgage at home. If you have a home mortgage, it's that. It says you'll pay this much on your principal this year, you'll pay this much on your interest, right off an amortization table. So this is very similar as far as you have a contractual agreement that you will pay principal and interest based on your bond covenants or loan agreements, okay? On that revenue side, if you turn back to that first page and we'll look on this summary, on the revenue side of this fund, you noticed on, if you look over there, it's got those 5 fiscal years. On fiscal year 2021, in that column, you see the second number down, it's for revenues, $56,072,789. That's the actual revenues that came into the debt service fund for the county last fiscal year per the state comptroller's audit, once they reviewed the financials. Now, what makes up that revenue? Just like our county general purpose school fund, the majority of the revenues for this is, it's the local revenues. One of them, of course, is property tax. You know, there is property tax in that, and I will pull up, tell you basically what that is. Okay. In that fiscal year 2021, according to the state comptroller's office, majority of the revenue for that fund came from county property tax of $47,846,174. They had some trustee collections related to the county property tax, as well as some clerk and master collections, a little bit of pickup taxes. That was the meat of that revenue for that fund. Coming after that, they have half of the adequate facilities tax that's going in there. That's for new construction, the development tax that's placed on there. It's budgeted around, for this fiscal year, around $3 million. Last fiscal year, that adequate development tax brought in an actual collections of revenue of $3,076,125. Right after that, one of the other larger items in there was a litigation tax. It was a litigation tax based on court cases, and it's earmarked for debt service based on for the jail, the county workhouse, or the new courthouse, or I'm sorry, the judicial building. Why is that concern an education side? And the answer is, as you can see, all the debt payments for the county are going in that fund to be serviced, be it education, be it public works, be it, administration of justice. If one of those revenues goes down, for example, the litigation tax dropped some because the court system was closed due to COVID. Okay, once again, there's contractual debt payments that have to be made, so some of that property tax or fund balance would then be used to cover that revenue shortfall. So once again, our education debt services in there with that regular county debt, which has to be serviced by contract. 1.6 million in business tax. That was debt payments, the county last fiscal year. Budgeted likewise. parks with Tennessee and with USDA for some space, and about 140 last year, and then about 300,000 investment income that from the investments the county has with the CDs, other items with idle funds, the trustees hold that into revenue bill. As you can see, at the end of the day, that total for last fiscal year of actual revenue was $56,70,789. Let's start over on the very left side of this, as you guys, as the board requested for 5 years of that this fund. On the first page, looking under fiscal year 2017, 2344. Then you add revenues, of course, 1,541. Less the actual expenditures for debt service of 47,377. You have excess of revenues over expenditures, 3.8 million. Then you see other funding sources. That uses, that's typically savings or costs dealing with refundings, which is like a refinance of a house. You know, if your interest rate's lower, you wanted to as a homeowner, you could refinance that and you could get a lower payment potentially. That financing sources, what you brought in. The budget that was approved by the county commission for the current fiscal year that we're in, for the debt service fund balance, as you can see, that budget has a deficit, a budgeted deficit of $3,513,771. Okay? On a note, the county commission has adopted a minimum fund balance policy for that fund. So they're looked to be around, if I can recall correctly, speaking with Ms. Nolan, the county finance director, around 65% of annual expenditures that they want to keep minimum in the fund balance of that fund. And obviously that's, one, that helps with the county's bond rating. Also, it's good management, because once again, those debt payments, that's on a contract, just like a mortgage, needs to be paid. So they keep adequate fund balance in there. And if that continues to go down, even though they do have a good fund balance there, they would be looking at, okay, until debt falls off that they're servicing, they need to maintain a certain amount of the fund balance there per their policy. So as you can see, for the last 2 fiscal years audited, this fund had a deficit, and they're budgeting for an even larger deficit this year. So housing. The other question from the board was, the actual last 5 years of building program expenditures. So if you drop down to that second column, you can see I've got the same years. We have the first line is per audit, education building plan actual expenditures. That is once the bonds are issued by the county, the funds drop down to our building program. And of course, we utilize those funds to build a school or an addition. The next line below that is that Fund 177, our Education Capital Project Fund. You see those actual expenditures that are budgeted in that fund. So as you can see, in fiscal year 2017 through fiscal year 2021, per audit, the actual expenditures for our education building program was $268,703,458. Below that was actual expenditures for education capital projects of $23,587,785. As you can see, to the column to the right of that was an annual actual average of expenditures for capital projects. Rutherford County expended an actual average building programs of $53,740,692 each year on average. Years. They had an annual actual average of $4,717,557 in education. In the so that does not include the additional back and general purpose building. This core below that, I included on the education capital in fiscal year 2020. We had actual expenditures in education capital of $7,481,960, dropped almost $1 million. This was because Mr. on this is, it's just this is the same as every other developer in this county right now. You can have funding, but it is a struggle to get labor and material to do the projects. So even though we did not have a cut in that fund for revenue, we had about $1 million less in expenditure simply because he's trying to get labor and material. There's a note right below that the current fiscal year budgeted expenditures in our education capital project fund amended by this board is $10,505,949. Once again, the funding is budgeted. It's just a matter of getting labor and material to the side. Dropping down below that, you can see the building projects that have been completed the last 5 of this between 2017 and 2021, and including what we have, we built the county built 5 schools, including Rockville High School. There's been 9 additions that are either completed or currently, there's 3 that are currently in construction. You look to the back, because this was asked too, is, what is the debt, what's the debt load of, if you turn to the back of this pamphlet, on the third and second to last page, what you see in front of you is the act of June 30th, 2017, the end of the first fiscal year of this study. You can actually see the outstanding June 30th, 2017. On that second last page, there's a bottom line of $400 debt total of the county government was $402,480,000. Flip the page, last page, it'll give you the change in net debt outstanding as of June 30th, 2021 per audit, $496,400,000, with a net increase of outstanding debt of $93,920,000. And that will give you the detail of what's outstanding. That was what I was requested by the board to provide on the financial side, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Was it required to be?
When I spoke to Lisa Nolan, she said that their fund balance policy, they said its rule of thumb was around 65% of the budgeted expenditures for that fund. A copy of their fund balance policies. If you like.
Any questions, comments?
I'd like to thank you very much. It's really good, makes sense.
You're welcome, sir.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Thank you, we appreciate this information. I have a question I'm not sure. Mr. Black, I'm going to ask you. In the same time frame, how many students did we add to our system?
Over 5 years, we were probably around 43 something, 43,000 that period of time, and we're 49. Had a big dump this year.
Yeah, sounds like it. Thank you. Okay, next item.
All right, next item is the facility here. TDOT offer for C position road widening. TDOT completed the appraisal process for the property along Thompson Lane to allow the widening of Thompson Lane. The offer includes placing a sign now shows relocating the sign. The sign can be relocated at 6 high. TDOT offer of 0.219 acres is $19,840. The land valuation is listed as $35,000 per acre. Mr. Lee, you want anything else you want to add to that?
Before the board a little over a year ago, and then the project, kind of like everything else did, stalled, and they went back and researched, reappraised, and just a hair more. It was like 206 last time, and it's 0.219 this time, and they reassessed things. I mean,
Where's the turning lane start?
it's in front, this property is in front of Siegel Middle, Siegel Elementary, and Siegel High. So it got it on both sides. It's less at Siegel High, they're going to widen it more from Murfreesboro Road on up. I guess it'd be 231. From 231 up to the school. Anything to get an additional lane through there, I don't think any of the schools or the parents driving it will get bad.
Mr. Creasy, you in favor of that?
Any questions or comments from members of the board?
How do they come up with 5,000 an acre?
They do comps from local property values in that area, just like you would for a home appraisal.
Must miss one of sold for 70,000 acres.
That's a little low.
We've got less than a quarter mile from it that's brought 90,000 an acre.
I agree with you.
I mean, I've got their appraisal. Mr. Reed would have to help me speak on that, but it's a state appraisal.
You never get from what you think you should get anyway.
Maybe we can get some land about that, 35.
Be nice. On the west side.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on.
All right, the 5-year building program from information only.
One of the things that we were asked, and I did it tonight and passed it out, and I'll email it to everybody tomorrow, and I need to make a change in it. The only thing I need to change is on the pre-K column. A lot of this got listed 35 throughout the district, and a lot of those have been relocated or they've been phased out. So they're listed down at the bottom. What this does, it gives you the capacity of each school, which has been asked for and sent out before. Then the enrollment, Dr. Sullivan sent me today's enrollment, and I've included that, which raised it from what you had seen before. And I've also added the portables column. So you've got the capacity, the current enrollment, and the not whether it's a single or a double, that's just what it equates to in classrooms. Listed now all on one page. And I will email this out in the morning to each of you.
The ones in red, it's over capacity, right?
Yes, sir. All the, when it gets to 95% capacity, we turn it, or I red. It makes it easier for me because typically, I mean, you can see most of those schools have already got portables, but it helps us for the next year when Dr. Sullivan and I start trying to decide who gets the portables that are being relocated from a previous construction that allows us to relocate. That's kind of a flag for us to look at.
Mr. Lee, I think you probably did a little typo there. You got capacity at Blackman Middle at 1635, but you got in red at 1620.
Middle. I'll double check, but it should be 90%. So
You got 1620 on the, it's 1635 on the enrollment, I mean, on the capacity, and 1620 on the enrollment.
Number may be right, just maybe red, it should be black.
okay, let me double check it. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes, you're correct.
Typically
It should be black.
on these, looking at, and I've had a long conversation with the director of school that worked in California when they had their big push. Typically, when it gets to 110% or higher, that's when it goes into the red. I think every time that we've brought a project up to the commission to get approved, that was one of the things we used as what is the capacity, what is the percentage of the current enrollment. And if it was like 110 or greater, then obviously we would, that would be our top choices or being funded.
I have a question. We just recently did elementary rezoning, and this might not be for you, Mr. Lee, but maybe Mr. Spurlock. And Barfield Elementary was part of that. And their enrollment numbers are in the red now. They're more than their capacity. Can you help me understand?
Yeah, typically, like I said, there's a lot of wiggle room there. When it's less than, less than 40 or 50, then you're probably got some rooms that are being utilized. That's, quite frankly, we have seen Barfield, I think, in 900 and something at one time. So that's really, their zone is really grown out. It's really confined. There may be a home or two that added there, but really, we don't anticipate that becoming problematic, quite frankly.
So that was my question about the flexibility.
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's
can see
very
a couple
flexible. Yes, ma'am.
students here and there, but we've also moved portables away
Right.
from there, so.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
also fluctuate a lot with Salem, and so Salem is dual zone city schools there, so parents a lot of times will go back and forth between the two.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you.
In some of our schools, that have capacity, it's, not in the area that, quite frankly, we need the capacity. There's Rocky Fork Elementary, as we looked at that, there's some things we probably can do there. Rocky Fork Middle, in fact, I think Dr. Sullivan and I talked about there. There's some things that we can do there when we're facing some of our challenges down there in the northern end of the county. John Coleman's unique a little bit there in terms of rezoning. Currently, right now, we really don't have any close by that would be at capacity or above, significantly above capacity.
Mr. Lee, on the Rockville Elementary addition and the middle addition, how many additional seats are we creating with those additions?
A little over 30 classrooms. It'd be a little over 500 additional seats at Rockville classrooms. It'd be about,
And while he's calculating that, a lot we have to take into account is what grade level it's assigned. So if it's a sixth grade at the middle school, we can go up to 30. If it's a seventh and eighth, we can go up to 35, but we can't go above those for class averages. So they're not going to be exact depending on what those classrooms are assigned for that year.
Thank you.
be about 400, but some of those seats are already taken.
That was 400 for Rockville.
Rockville Middle,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
it's kind of almost like emptying out the portables.
Yes.
So will
It is a
With,
lot like
with some space, but
Yeah,
yes.
it's a little, but it's, depending on when it gets built out, is gonna be depending on when we would see it become more dense, if you will. One of the things too, as we look at, some of these zoning lines and things of that nature, is we haven't seen at Blackman Farms, that's what it's, Shelton Farm.
Shelton Farms.
We haven't seen the build out yet.
It's just now starting to come to
We
us.
anticipate Brown's Chapel, and probably it will really impact Blackman Middle
Yes.
and some of those areas. So and then of course down in on Rocky, what was it, Rocky?
There's 5 subdivisions between Amoville Road and Kedron Church there on Rocky Fork, I call it where Rocky Fork and Rocky Fork come together. Just past Kedron Church, there's 5 subdivisions there. 2 of them are maybe 20%, 30% built out, and the others are just now really getting rolling. And then there's the TNT farm that's further up. Once that new sewer line that the city of Smyrna's running out Rocky Fork up Lee Road, that's going to go almost to the Williamson County line. That's going to open up some big tracks that have been sitting out there kind of on the county line that haven't done much, that are fixing to bust wide open too. There's 2 or 3 developers that they're sitting on that land and have been for a while, waiting on the sewer, and the sewer's almost there. Then over on the Waldron Road side, we got you got the Gwynn Estate property at the end of Waldron Road and Rock Springs, and then you've got the other one that's past the Laverne Council that's dependent upon which option they start with. And of course, it's not all going to build out right away, but you're looking at between 500 and 700 homes there, depending on which route they go. And that's right across the road from Rock Springs Elementary.
So Blackman Middle has an addition, though.
Yes, ma'am, but it's
Yes.
full.
Yeah, and Stewart's Creek Middle doesn't have, there's no room there for an addition.
We think we could get a few more classrooms there, kind of like what we've done at Rockvale. It was not designed to be added on to.
Okay.
I think on that one, now, and this is my opinion, you can take it, leave it. It would behoove us not to rezone in the future some of those kids back to Rocky Fork Middle, because it's sitting there with the capacity and it's not filled.
No, but you're right, because there's a couple of pretty decent subdivisions right there around Rocky Fork Elementary that are just now really moving. The one adjacent to us that started about the time we started the elementary school, it's probably got 50 homes completed now, but it's 250 to 300 homes. And they could walk. In fact, the developer did a very nice job. He worked with us and requested an easement, and they actually poured a sidewalk from their property over to our road where we have a crosswalk, so that the students in the middle part of the neighborhood wouldn't have to walk to the front or do what most kids would do, what I would have done, cut across the path or a path. He actually went midway of the subdivision and added a sidewalk.
Nice.
That's nice.
Very nice. Thank you for the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions? Comments? Okay.
Our number 3, Christiana Middle School Storage Building. Dr. Kyle Nix has requested purchase a storage building for the girls softball team for $2,866. This request is to be funded out of the softball fund. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and approves.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All right. Should we go through the others?
Insurance update.
Our next meeting is Thursday, so we'll have a report for you Thursday night.
Thank you.
All right, Director's update, I'll have something tomorrow night, or Thursday night, excuse me. I'll have something Tuesday night, too. It's called a commission.
We hope so. Ms. Maxwell, number 15.
I will have something. There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, there is, for both 15 and 16? Perfect, thank you. General discussion.
I wanted to bring up 3 items, and they all basically have to do with either subs or EAs. One, we had talked a while ago about perhaps upping the pay for our EAs. We did that with the cafeteria workers, and it hasn't gone unnoticed, the EAs.
Yeah.
That
Now they want to go to work in the cafeteria.
I would like to see us do something there.
Okay, that has been discussed with especially special ed EAs. And of course, you saw what the board approved, which you approved was there are certain EAs that did get an increase already, but that is being looked at.
Okay.
It is actively being discussed with this upcoming budget. Yes, ma'am.
And the second thing was, I called and I talked to Katie, and she said, you all were talked about it, but I never did hear anything more about it, about the fact that we could use some of our EAs as bus aids. Did we make any high roads on that? Because I think that would work, maybe not in the long run, but for short term, I think that would help. I don't think we've gotten all of our aids filled, or maybe we did.
These are buses, you're talking about the special ed bus EAs? No,
Having an
there's,
EA, at the end of the day, when the bus comes, that EA, like,
if those EAs are interested in doing that, they can sign up to do that.
I know I gladly would have done it, and that's what I'm saying. Usually there's one person that doesn't have, anything that they're running home for that wouldn't mind doing it,
We do have a few that already do that, but if there's others that are interested in doing that, then yes, they can get with SPED and they can work, they can add the hours.
And then my last thing was also about, did we do anything about maybe having parents sign up to be subs? I know we talked about it last year. There was one of the schools, elementary schools, I think Las Casas had some parents inquire about wanting to be subs.
You're talking about subs in general or subs on
Volunteer.
buses?
No, subs at their school,
Volunteer.
volunteering.
That'd be Dr. Anthony.
Are you talking about for the buses?
No, I'm talking about to be subs. I mean,
Oh,
like,
yes.
my kid goes to Central Magnet, and I'm on a sub there. If you all need somebody, I'm saying if you can't find somebody through Advantage,
Right.
and maybe this is your second list.
And some of the principals have held meetings at their parent nights and invited Advantage in to help facilitate that so that the parents get to see the Advantage employees and help them to sign up at that point in time. We were also on the radio show this morning and had several people call in to let us know that they were interested in becoming subs. So that was very profitable this morning. I would say about an hour after we got back from the 8 o'clock show, we had probably about a dozen that we were able to pass on to Advantage. So between the schools trying to advertise that, and they also have their yard signs to try to make sure that their parents are aware of it, bringing up at their PTO meetings, they are, giving them that ideal as
Now, they have
well.
to go through the same rigorous, they have to be fingerprinted and all.
Yes, ma'am, they sure do.
Has that process gotten any easier?
Well, TBI is looking to see if they can go ahead. I think I spoke with you earlier about the challenges we have with Adenigo closing down sometimes 1 day a week, sometimes 2 days a week, and then when their fingerprints are scheduled every 10 minutes. The challenge that I was telling you about that we were having with having to reschedule them. At one time, TBI said that they would provide us a machine because they've caused so many, disruptions with our employees getting fingerprinted. There is one county in the state that does have that right now. TBI has asked us to hold out because they're rebidding. They're in the process right now. This is their rebidding time for them to be looked at many vendors to see if they can handle the fingerprinting. The problem is they're closing so many of their contracted fingerprinting places. And so we are down to certain locations for certain days of the week, and many of our employees are having to go outside the county for fingerprinting as well. But the TBI is aware of that, as well as Adenigo. We send them daily reports, and then anytime they close, they contact us. We pass that on to the TBI so they will know that as well.
Okay, thank you. I was just checking up.
Yes.
Dr. Anthony, have you talked to Wilson County about how they have invited their parents to sub? What, are they doing anything different?
Well, they had such a low fill rate with their vendor. Their vendor also shares the border of the metro area that they're having difficulty filling their substitutes, so they have invited them as well in metro. Basically, it's, everybody's schedule depends on if it works for their students, works for their family. They've done the same yard signs, those kind of advertisements being the same, and inviting them into the sub-program.
When I was in when I moved here for banking, they fingerprinted us, and they did that in their administrative offices. I can't imagine, and I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I mean, there's so many banks here in Murfreesboro. Who is fingerprinting those employees that are working for the banks here?
I think they would be contracted out. We even asked if we would be able to use maybe the sheriff's department for
that would be a
fingerprinting
great
as
idea.
well. Sharing our challenges that we've had with, especially with the TBI, thinking that would be an avenue. It really has to do with their vendor contracting, and so we've let them know that we are very much for becoming our own fingerprinting system again.
Yeah, I think that would be great for us. Also, are we looking into hiring a second agency to fill subs?
On the 27th, we're sending out our RFP. It's time again to do that. And we'll be meeting on the 7th with the vendors that are interested to be able to have them time to ask additional questions so that we can help, facilitate those. We divided in our contract with our RFP zones, like the north zone, the south zone. So we are hoping to see multiple vendors that can meet those needs and carry their liability insurance as well. That seems to be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, and we won't have a non-compete clause in any of those RFPs. So, I mean, if they work for one that,
Absolutely. Okay. So we could have multiple vendors, kind of like with the mowing, we have 4 vendors.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
How long is that window for the RFP? How long is that open for our substitute?
Basically, it takes about a month, and then we'll have something usually in March. Our committee will review and rate and give a recommendation, and then allow for times for them to come in if you would wish them to come in, if someone new, to hear what kind of platforms that they used. Some use the same platform, PSG and Advance use the same platform, but others use different platforms. So they'll kind of share their ideals, and if they are a school-only type of vendor, or if they have a bigger conglomerate, they may be able to bring in additional, workers for us.
Does that include maybe an EAs also? I mean, do they?
Some substitute programs provide subs for nurses, EAs, those kind of items as well. Okay. Yes.
So what's the cutoff, the last day for a company to submit?
They would have to do that in February.
Okay, so February is the cutoff? Mm-hmm. Do you have a specific date?
I believe it's on the packet. It may be the last Wednesday in February.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Comments? No? Okay. Thank you to the staff and everybody for all the information. We appreciate all that you do for us. And members of the board will have an executive session directly following this meeting. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.